Is our next speaker, Rebecca Traverzo. She's the Vice President of Marketing at ThirdLove. Welcome, Rebecca. Are you there? It takes a second to get everyone connected. And let's see, yeah, let me actually expand my screen.
Can you
Rebecca,
guys see me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I cannot see you.
Wait. Oh,
There you are. Wait, let's square. There we go.
hi. How are you? Hi, Lisa.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you are here. What is that? Is that like a chalkboard behind you or?
I'm actually in the office, if you can
Oh,
imagine. So it feels really good to actually be in the office, but this is like a little like cubicle pod. And it's just a little bit of a rug background, actually. Very fancy.
I thought you were being like we were going to get to see some like drawings and things like that with it.
Not today, not today.
Today. All right. Well, I mean, as I introduced you, you really did develop this whole new holistic kind of marketing, and really it started. You got what 50% of your budget was cut, and then you had to kind of figure out how to do things more efficiently. Which talk about that. What did let's back up a little bit. How did you respond in that sense, and how did you then reevaluate your strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Once COVID hit, I mean, like many other brands and startups, we really needed to quickly pivot to profitability as the success and longevity of a startup really begins and ends with how much money you have in the bank to allow you a long enough runway to kind of weather the storm. So we began to assess our marketing mix and our investments to ensure every dollar we invested into the marketplace counted. We focused primarily on the lower funnel performance marketing channels and tactics to really capture those high intent customers, as many as possible. And we pulled back significantly on any brand building and top of funnel initiatives, but kept some of our core partnerships in place with some successful OTT and CTV partners like Hulu. For example, we had some integrations in Mrs. America and Little Fires Everywhere programming with Hulu that was super successful. And that allowed us to keep a steady stream of awareness support in the marketplace. But by stepping back and doing a full assessment on our marketing efforts, we were really able to identify a point of diminishing returns across our core platforms and all the big guns out there like Facebook and Google that we were investing heavily on historically, and some others as well, which allowed us to really right-size the business and right-size our spend. And although we did see a year-over-year decline in our overall business for the year due to COVID, actually Q2 and Q4 was actually profitable for us, which was a step change. And then moving into 2021, we really took these learnings and we're activating a more integrated full funnel marketing strategy with more of a bottoms up approach. So we had the learnings from 2020 on which channels perform best for our audience at what spend thresholds and CPA caps, which kind of became our baseline and foundation to build upon. And it allowed us to add more mid and upper funnel support while also being really confident that we could deliver the sustainable customer growth we were seeking in 2021.
Well, now talk about that a little bit because, as I sort of alluded to when we introduced you, you were very performance driven, and Facebook was really the lion's share of what you guys were doing. But then you took these learnings, and I have to say the name of your campaign, your Boobs Deserve Third Love campaign. Okay, I said it. And you took these learnings and had a much more diversified mix. So talk about that and what kind of results you were seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, we're activating a full funnel and integrated marketing strategy actually for the first time in ThirdLove history. We did have a brand campaign in 2019, which was the Teach Your Own campaign, but we actually didn't pay that campaign off throughout her entire brand journey. So with Your Boobs Deserve Third Love, we're really brand storytelling throughout her entire consumer journey from initial exposure in kind of high reaching mass awareness vehicles such as TV, again, OTT, CTV, and YouTube, all the way to her site experience with shoppable landing pages and blog content featuring our brand campaign content. We're also leveraging more snackable elements of the campaign that are much more product centric, and really tap into the mid to lower part of the funnel on engagement channels such as Snapchat and Pinterest and TikTok. Snapchat, for one, has been a new channel for us that we activated on in 2020 and saw great success, that we kind of doubled down on 2021.
And in terms of what metrics were you really looking for? I mean, obviously sales is a important metric, but what else were your key performance?
Yeah, for sure. We've really focused on empirical results versus just financial measures. I mean, obviously we look at sales and revenue on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis in order to obviously exceed our forecast, but we really try and look at more qualitative results such as brand awareness, brand lift, relevance, familiarity, and consideration amongst our core audience. We have a brand health tracker that we leverage on a monthly and quarterly basis. And we also look at more quantitative results, such as like customer counts, traffic, CPA, ROAS, and engagement metrics, to really inform our future marketing strategies and business decisions. And so far, we're really excited about the initial results of the brand campaign and the positive trends in the business that we're seeing.
Well, can you share any of the particular metrics that you have? Anything that really you saw that what a difference this holistic kind of strategy worked for you?
Yeah, what I will say, I won't call out specific numbers, but what I will say is that we were able to actually cut our CPAs in half, from last year. So we launched our brand campaign in February of 2021. And if we look back to Q1 in comparison to 2020, where we were, at a pretty high CPA and we had a pretty high investment level, we've been able to achieve half of the CPA from last year, while also only spending half of the marketing investment that we were spending last year. And specific to TV, what we saw also when TV was actually on air, that we actually saw even more significant gains at the bottom of the funnel. So our CPA actually declined 20% when TV was actually on air, just because it was driving so much more direct and organic traffic, while our conversion was also growing. And that's like an amazing paradigm to be in, which doesn't happen too often, because typically when you drive, significant traffic, you do see your conversion take a little bit of a hit, and start to decline. But overall, you're obviously, looking at growth with those two factors coming together. But so that's a little bit about the success that we're seeing to date.
Wow, that's amazing. And I want to back up also with what I sort of introduced you as yesterday when I talked about you in terms of your data and how much, I mean, what, like 18,000 data points and possibly more at this point. Talk about that and how you really, I mean, I know with COVID, I feel like you guys sort of had to sort of go back to the basics and really listen to customers and kind of develop the strategy from there, and talk about how you did that and then even expanded on it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're actually sitting on close to 18 million data
Oh,
points from our customers who have taken our fitting room quiz as it relates to her current bra problems and fit issues, her style preferences, her size, her breast shape, and ultimately her product needs. So this helps us do a couple of things. One, it helps us create better and more quality fitting products. It helps us expand our current product assortment to include styles she enjoys. So like wireless styles and seamless styles. And it also helps us expand into other categories of business like lounge and sleep, which we just launched also in February, to deliver on her comfort needs throughout her day. But we also have a ton of data points aside from the fitting room quiz, on her brand engagement, her channel consumption, her media habits, her site experience, and her purchase cycle, since we in-house all of our paid media efforts for the most part, aside from more traditional channels like TV. But we're able to assess our most valuable cohorts with that data to create lookalike audiences that we can leverage in our channel campaigns to deliver better effectiveness of those efforts, as well as drive increased efficiencies. And this past year in February, also just based on all these data points and all the feedback that the anecdotal feedback that we've gotten for her, we also use like Usabella as kind of a customer feedback tool that we immerse ourselves into on a daily basis in order to ensure that she has the most optimal site experience. but we launched a more robust and dynamic fitting room experience earlier this year to really capture even more data points to continue to deliver best-in-class products and a best-in-class brand experience. And based on those data points, we were also able to launch ThirdLove Kits, which was pretty much born out of her ask from us for our fashion and curated POV on which products she should buy to meet her needs. All have been proven successful thus far.
Well, what tools are you leveraging? I mean, you're talking about the experience in the dressing room, or fitting room. Talk about what tools you're using for that in AR, or what do you have?
Yeah, so that's all of our first party data that we house in our data lake. And then from a marketing channel perspective, we also leverage this tool called Marketing Evolution that allows us to both measure traditional and non-traditional, traditional and digital channels to get an understanding of almost like a pseudo multi-touch attribution platform to get a sense of the halo from traditional channels to digital channels, as well as the value of those traditional and digital channels to overall revenue. So that's another platform that we use. And we also, as I mentioned, use Isabella as a real-time customer feedback tool throughout her site journey. So if she's having any friction points throughout her site journey, she's able to kind of click this little, button, hot button on the side that she's able to kind of give real-time feedback for.
And what I found interesting when we spoke before is a lot of this information you might have had, before, but you were sort of overlooking it. And I think that's a huge lesson learned from maybe a lot of other brands out there, that you had to you had nothing else to do, or you had nowhere else to go. So it forced you to sort of look back. Talk about that and how it led you to discovering all of this information all this data that you had but weren't leveraging.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess that's looking at the glass half full and what COVID has been, able to do for us, not only on the business side, but also on the personal side, right, with working from home and just being more ingrained in our families and making sure that every time that we spend is super valuable and meaningful. But on the business side of things, it really forced us to just take a step back and look at the entire business from soup to nuts, top to bottom, right? Looking at our operational measures, our financial measures, and our marketing initiative support and mix and all that, but and all the data, first party data that we had on hand. And, we really had to look at the business through a totally different lens, especially when we think about customer acquisition versus retention. We always want to drive new customer acquisition because that's just going to showcase the longevity of the brand. But it was really equally important for us to look at our retention and our retention rates and our repeat rates, because to be honest, like the typical purchase cycle for bras is around 13 to 15 months, which is way too long for us to meet our revenue goals for the year, right? So we had to increase our efforts in email and focus on growing our SMS channel, which started to showcase itself as a very rapid and significant growth channel for the brand, and really kind of have a more balanced approach to new and repeat, close to almost 50-50. So we also expanded our segmentation capabilities by migrating to a new and more robust ESP platform. So we just migrated over to sale through. And we also took personalization to new heights with dedicated home pages for both new and repeat, as well as high and low intent audiences to ensure that her site journey was optimal for her needs. So all that wouldn't have been capable without taking a step back and looking at all the data that was at our disposal. And then another thing that we did was also focus on our 30 and 60-day repeat rate with new customers, because we know we had done a bunch of cohort analysis, and we knew that if we can get her to make a second purchase within windows, that she's more likely to have a stronger lifetime value for us than other cohorts. So that's an initiative that we carried with us through 2021. And it also kind of catalyzed our expansion into new categories of business that had a much more shorter purchase cycle, and much more commodity based, like underwear started to become a bigger priority for us.
Well, and you talk about also you started going into loungewear and, having new product offerings, and all of that is from the data that you were collecting and what people were doing. But how are you? I mean, obviously, there's ways that you need to get so much data, and it's sort of built in just because, the sizing and all of that kind of thing. But how are you able to then get even more data than that for people, for maybe a brand that doesn't necessarily have to ask your size or but there must be other ways to sort of to attract that information and then figure out, okay, we need loungewear, we need whatever else. What other things were you leveraging?
Yeah, we were also doing some qualitative research, customer surveys on our end, like, just using SurveyMonkey, to be honest, and sending out surveys to our highest value customers and just getting a sense of, what did they want to see from the brand? Like, how are they interacting with the brand? How are they engaging with the brand? Both, from a one-to-one perspective, but also, what were they experiencing in the world with everything that was going on? And a lot of the feedback that we got back was that we're just focusing on comfort. We just want to, everything to be easy and seamless, and frictionless. That's also why we launched kits, because they were asking for kind of our fashion, and our curated POV on like what she should buy in order to stay comfortable. Wired bras took a little bit of a hit when COVID hit because nobody was going to the office, and they felt like they didn't need that level of support. And, a great stat that I like to showcase is that 80% of women out there right now are wearing the wrong bra size. So you can imagine how uncomfortable women are, around the world and the country, wearing a wired bra that's actually the wrong size for them. So we've all had that moment where we just rip it off as soon as we get home and throw it on the floor because we just want it off our bodies because it's so uncomfortable. So, but we happen to make an amazing fitted bra, and we try and get you into the most optimal fit with our fitting room experience. So all of that came into play, in order for us to drive growth for the year and move into 2021 feeling really confident with some great momentum.
Yeah, and that's great. Now, I want to, before I ask my last question of you, I want to remind everyone that if you have a question for Rebecca, raise your hand and Steve will offer you an unmute, or you can also ask it in the chat box. But just so much happened, obviously, for you guys, and so many positive things. But is there that one thing that's just that aha moment, whether good or bad, that really pushes you moving forward and what you want to continue with moving into 2021 and beyond?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the most valuable lesson we learned is just to be agile. Focus on speed to market versus perfection. Like, don't be too precious with everything. And I think sometimes we get into this vicious cycle where we want everything to be precious. We want everything to be data driven. Like we don't want to take a step forward until it's proven, right? But for us, it was really about just being super agile, like speed to market. It was about testing, learning, failing fast, and then doubling down on the things that were actually working. And don't focus on the things that aren't working. Like, if it's not working, there's no need to really do a deep dive and assessment to really understand why it's not working, as much as to understand what actually is working. And then, I think a lot, when working from home happened, I think it was great for a while. I don't think it's sustainable, especially in the marketing and creative world, because it's just so hard to have that like creative juice flowing and that water cooler moment that sparks ideas. So hopefully we'll get back to some sense of normalcy very soon. But, it's all about using your gut as well as the data, right? Like we're all kind of a DTC brand, so we all have a ton of data at our disposal. But I think sometimes we get bogged down in the data. It's almost like analysis paralysis in a way. But I think we should use our gut a little bit more, as well as the data, to inform our business decisions. And it's truly like the art, science, and strategic rigor of that data and that gut to really implement, great marketing campaigns that'll drive positive business growth for your brands. And that's what we've done at ThirdLove.
Great. Well, let's bring in Steve. Yep, here he is.
Hi. Hi, Rebecca. That's great detail that you gave. Thank you. Thank you so much. I have a few quick questions. You mentioned that you've successfully lowered your CPA, but at the same time, you're doing a lot on TV and a lot on OTT, especially OTT, where prices went through the roof in some cases, especially in the last year. How are you managing the costs on those high-end offline channels and still actually lowering your CPAs?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've streamlined our OTT and CTV partnerships. Like we have a deep partnership with Hulu. We know it works. It was super successful for us in 2020, and they're just great partners. So that's one thing. Streamline your partners. And make sure you focus on the ones that work. But also from a traditional, just linear TV perspective, we've also done a balanced approach of like general audience targeting as well as more of a direct response approach. So this allows us to gain a level of efficiencies that we're okay with. And the offset on the spend is also driven by the efficiency that you're gaining with CPAs, right? So for example, I'll throw some numbers out there for you. Typically our CPA, we've been able to get to a level of efficiency, let's say at a $45 to $50 CPA. In 2020 and historically before 2020, we were upwards of anywhere between a $75 to $85 CPA. Wow. And then when TV's on air, we see we're in the low 30s from a CPA perspective. So there's a kind of like, a little bit of a beg and borrow and steal kind of thing going on.
How has your yesterday we heard from Ryan at Peloton, and it's very clear that the ads they're running today are very different in terms of who they're targeting than they were 3 years ago. I'm curious, has your target evolved over the last 3 years? Are you aiming for a very different target now than you did when you guys started?
Yeah, I would say that we're a little bit more strategic and laser focused. And you see it in our content as well as our overall audience targeting and all campaigns. So we're all about diversity and inclusivity. So you'll always see very, ethnically diverse size, shapes in our content, but we do want to make sure that we're tapping into that universal truth of all women and that we're showcasing her throughout her entire lifetime, right? So we were a little bit older in the past where we were focused more on that women 35 plus, just because we are a premium brand. But we have, lowered that a little bit to really focus on the lower end of that demographic. And now we're focused on, 25 to 44, for example.
And finally, brand differentiation. It's a much more cluttered marketplace now than a few years ago. Bras are sort of like the new mattresses when it comes to D2C, which may not be the best comparison. But regardless, what are the key points of differentiation now in this cluttered marketplace? Where do you break through and make sure that people are seeing you as different?
Yeah, great question. And so like on point, because we're doing a lot of work on our end right now on reevaluating our brand strategy, our brand positioning, our visual and verbal identity, because we truly live in this sea of sameness right now. Like diversity and inclusivity, I say that we basically built the DTC playbook on that. That's inherent to our DNA, but it's table stakes at this point in time, right? So I think our true differentiation is fit. And quality and function across the board, and really tapping into 24/7 comfort no matter what. So we're actually doing some work on our end to actually relaunch our brand positioning very shortly. So more to come on that.
Well, that's all I have. Thanks so much. That was great.
Yeah, that was really awesome, Rebecca. Thank you
so much for having me.
Thank you.